Well, that was annoying. Um, ended up sleeping. Well, I ended up lying down, just like my stomach ache, and felt kind of bloated. I don't know. Maybe it was the can of beans I had the other day. Could have had something to do with it. I did eventually fall asleep, but like it was more just like lying down. Um, I'm feeling better. It's 11 o'clock at night, so it's not a 2-day vlog. I think that today will be a 2-day vlog. Sunday, Monday. I don't know how much. I'm gonna need to think about this. I may actually spend the day doing end of the month stuff like cleaning. I know that I'm gonna have to go down this afternoon, figure out what I'm doing with the estrogen, where I'm moving it to. I still don't know exactly when I'm getting paid this month, and it might actually be this morning. So it's just because of the holiday in the States. I don't know how this works. So well, then again, it's through CIBC. I just remember it being weird once before, and I coming in earlier than expected once before because of that. But if I have money this afternoon or even this morning, it's gonna make more sense to do grocery shopping today. I'm gonna make some eggs today, but I'm pretty drastic. I've got no cheese left. It's gonna be the last of the eggs, the last of the salami. I've got like one. I don't even have any condiments, so like I'm out of food. I've got stuff in the cupboards that I can make. I can make some more beans. I can make some more pasta, etc. Like there's things I can do, but if I've got cash in there this afternoon, I should go today, kind of thing. So that's the hope. If not, it might make more sense to vacuum in here today, so that I can do laundry tomorrow. Sit down and think about it, but this might be another day of low productivity relating to the vlog. I really wanted to get something done yesterday. I mean, I did. I got the show review worked out, but I was hoping to be more productive. Oh well. Although just to follow up on the bust in yesterday's vlog, what I can hear in the basement here is a kind of like a whirring sound, like a kind of sounds a little like a fan, and it might in some sense be a fan. It might be something interacting with a fan or something, I don't know. But as soon as you get out here, you can start hearing a little bit of a rumble. You hear that? You're clearly audible. It's some kind of hip-hop act. And I'll check the schedule. I don't think there's anything happening tonight I want to go see, and it's well, it's 11:30. They're done around midnight, anyways. But yeah. So I told you you could hear it from here. You can tonight. You couldn't last night. I guess it was just the opening night was a little bit quieter than the main night. It's a shame. because I would have much preferred to hear Kraftwerk coming at me at that kind of volume than, I don't know what that is, some kind of hip hop. Anyways, yeah, I'll get some of these. Yes, this is Movement Festival from across the river. You saw how far I walked yesterday. I think the name of the act is RZA. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know, some millennial music or something. But yeah, it's see, this is what I was saying, is that if you open your window, you can hear it. This is actually even a little quieter than last year, believe it or not. And I'm a good 20-minute walk from downtown, so there have been noise complaints over the years. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. It's done at midnight. It's not like it's all night, right? So I mean, you really maybe you shouldn't go to bed so early. That's kind of my perception, right? No, I mean honestly, people complain that you're keeping me up too late. Well, actually, maybe you're going to bed too early. I'm sorry. My priorities are the other way around. It's more like I don't see a reason to be quiet so that you can go to bed at 8 o'clock at night or whatever time you go to bed at, right? Midnight is not late. Sorry. Let's shift the social goalposts here. Anyways, yeah, it's just a demonstration. So there was some logic into my thinking last night, even though it didn't pan out. So, nuclear determinants, disarmament. What do I think about all this stuff? Well, I think that it kind of, it's the same kind of logical error, or I think that leftists make the same basic logical error on nuclear weapons that they make on guns. In the sense that they seem to suggest that they seem to be confused about the plausibility of their desires. I can agree in an abstract sense that we'd probably be better off if nuclear weapons had never been developed. That's probably true. I do think that the deterrence is a real thing, and deterrence probably has prevented. See, let's take a step back here. A lot of people will claim that deterrence prevented a war between the United States and the Soviet Union. I think that the premise is flawed. I think that there were all kinds of wars between the United States and the Soviet Union. There were wars in Vietnam, in Korea, in Eastern Europe, in Greece, in the Middle East, in Africa. There's a very large, complicated conflict there. To suggest that it didn't happen is kind of ignorant. So, I mean, there were many, many wars between the United States and the Soviet Union. So to suggest that deterrence prevented it, it's just not reality, right? But I think that there's an argument that it prevented wars in more strategic areas, right? So they would fight in the Middle East instead of in Western Europe. But I mean, on the flip side of it, I mean, if the Russians could break through those lines, quickly and swiftly than they would have, right? So it's a complicated discussion and everything, but I mean, there's something to the idea of deterrence. But I mean, I think that it's overrated or overstated. Um, the did did nuclear weapons prevent war? No, we've had all kinds of wars since the end of World War II. And we've seen an increase in conflicts since the collapse of the Soviets. I think that there's probably a better argument that has to do with capitalism fearing the results of a socialist uprising in its own backyard, right? You can imagine the nightmare scenario from the capitalist perspective is that the United States gets in a war with Russia, and the workers in the United States revolt, and they get taken down from the inside. I'm going to switch my battery. I'll be back in a sec. Right, so there's lots of things going on there. Deterrence was one of them. But I think that probably the single major reason why there was never a war was because the Americans didn't think they'd survive it. Not in terms of actually losing, but in terms of their own country falling apart under the pressure of stress from the bottom up, right? There were major people's movements in the First World War that happened parallel to the Russian Revolution in Germany and France, in Canada, and in the United States too. Excuse me. And when the Americans got to Europe at the near the end of World War II, the first thing they did was they stamped out all the communes and self just autonomous regions that had asserted themselves in the vacuum of power, right? So there's a very real fear that would be the outcome of a war between the United States and Russia, would be that the Americans may win on the battlefield, but the structure of the country would completely fall apart. So they need these little small wars that do things one bit at a time instead, to keep the anger contained. Of course, they had conscription back then too, right? Which is a big factor. Anyways, I'm rambling. I was supposed to be talking about nuclear weapons here. A deterrent is a real thing. I think that as a defensive, let's be clear that we're talking about deterrence as defensive things, right? Deterrents don't work as offensive, whatever that even means. That's just like a misunderstanding of the term deterrent, really, right? A deterrent means that you're trying to say don't attack me or you'll get blown up, right? Nuclear weapons have never been used as a bully tactic, and for good reason, right? It's always been as a defensive posturing. So if I was Iran, for example, I would think that having nuclear weapons as a deterrent would be a good idea. And I might support that to prevent an attack from the outside, right? That would be an example where a country having nuclear weapons would act as as an incentive for peace, right? But all that said, what does disarmament mean, right? Leftists kind of do this with guns too, right? They say that if we had gun control or whatever else, then it would just fix the problem, without realizing that it doesn't really matter what regulations you put in place. Guns can continue to be manufactured. They're sold on the black market. It's not very plausible to think that a centralized state can really control the movement of goods and services in that kind of way, right? So I have moral support towards the idea of abolishing, all weapons, guns, nuclear weapons, and everything in between. If we could get rid of them, they would no longer exist. Round them all up, throw them in a big fire. Maybe not the nukes. Maybe you don't want to throw them in a fire, but you get the point. Just get rid of them all and move forward, right? But it's very utopian. It's idealistic. It's not realistic, right? So if we take that sort of idea about guns and saying, well, you know, ideally, sure, let's get rid of them all, let's control them all, and everything. In reality, you can't actually do that, right? So the better option is to um, make people think they have the freedom of it and then track it, right? Um, but even better than that is to um, focus on humans. Have people um, not want weapons around them, right? To change the culture, it's a cultural thing, right? If you take that and you compare it, or you draw upon that. I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained right now. Overslept. Haven't eaten yet. If you draw that analogy to nuclear weapons, what does it mean to disarm? Uh, like what does that mean? Just decommissioning all of the nuclear weapons? Because if that's the case, then the technology still exists and they can be rebuilt um, fairly quickly. So does that mean burning the science that got us there? Like, what does this mean? Um, and I think that when you take the argument, and I mean, if you're really serious about disarmament, you're left in a very anti-intellectual place. Because the only way you can really have disarmament and enforce it and be sure it's there is to go down the path of burning things, destroying knowledge, and even that in itself, things. I mean, how could you even destroy knowledge in 2016? With the mass amounts of printed materials scattered all over the world in millions of libraries. You've got the internet, distributed. Like, how is that? You'll be burning things for 50 years, right? And you think we'd have the sense to stop at some point then, right? So um, you're left with the conclusion that disarmament is actually just a strategic disadvantage. Um, because all you're doing is you're making it so that you have to take longer to manufacture something as a deterrent than your opponent does. Right? And all you're doing is removing it. So, what's the better way to reduce the threat of nuclear weapons? Well, if we acknowledge that you can't go back in time, you can't unlearn things, you can't destroy technology, then what's left is the need to put stronger controls around it, right? That's going to be a bigger issue in Asia than it is here. Um, for example, it might a lot of this logic might break down when you're talking about Pakistan, right? For a country like Pakistan, the danger of having crazy people take over the nuclear weapons may be more powerful than any other logic in any other way, right? So, um, and this is just another example of the disingenuousness of American foreign policy. Um, they go after Iran, who has a legitimate reason for a deterrent, and they just shrug off Pakistan. You think that if they were really concerned, they would go after Pakistan, because that's a really seriously dangerous situation. Whereas Iran is essentially harmless, right? Um, but how do you convince Pakistan to eliminate this deterrent while India has nuclear weapons? And then how do you? I mean, what are the real reason that India requires nuclear weapons is not concern about Pakistan. You know, Pakistan's an annoyance. It's nobody. The Indians don't really want to fight them. They want to take over large amounts of their land and everything, but it's not really a fair fight, right? India is like 5 times its size, and if it ever came down to a conventional, like to a serious conventional war, India would spank Pakistan pretty badly. Um, it would be over pretty quick. Um, the real reason that India requires a nuclear deterrent is China, right? So convincing India to disarm has nothing to do with Pakistan. It has everything to do with China. And like convincing China to disarm has to do with the United States, right? So it does create these kinds of escalations where things start spiraling out of control. It's arms races, right? This is, so the focus needs to be on ways to, minimize that, make that less of a concern, um, rather than just like getting rid of the technology, right? It's again, I mean, to be clear, I do share the concerns that people have. You know, I would be pro disarmament if I thought it made any sense. It's just it's an irrational position. And so if you want to minimize the effects of dangerous weapons, we don't need to go back 100 years. Undo a hey, if you want to go back to the Dark Ages, the best way to do it is to actually use the nuclear weapons, right? If that is that what you want, right? I mean, you can't undo progress, right? You can't unlearn things. It's ridiculous. So even if you even if you were to dismember all of them, or sorry, to dismantle all of them, the technology is still there. The plans are there. All of the governments will have them, and so like you're not actually accomplishing anything. The smarter thing to do is to try to find ways to um, ensure that the weapons don't get out. It's this is a shift in thinking, right? I think that it will probably end up being a generational shift in thinking, right? I think that the left, the oppositional movement, the peace people, whatever you want to call them, needs to be less idealistic about this and be more pragmatic and realize, okay, you can't undo nuclear weapons. You have to just find ways to deal with it, right? So That may mean something like a joint outside force, the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans, um, uh, putting stronger restrictions over the nuclear weapons in Pakistan, right? Um, they might be held in safety facilities or something, or you might have UN troops outside of them, or just something like that, right? Um, but yeah, it's just not. I guess maybe a quick way to say what I'm trying to say is that instead of focusing on harm elimination, which is you know unrealistic, the focus with nuclear weapons should be more on harm reduction. And I know that you can argue that one thing goes wrong and then we're all fucked, but um, that's that's life. That's that's a box that's been opened. Um, you're not going to get anything back in it, and you're going to have to deal with that. So pot busts in Canada, what's going on with that? I thought it was going to be legal. Well, yeah, but they got to pass the legislation first. If you've been following the news and listening to the way people have been talking, the mayor and stuff, it's been expected for a while that there would be these raids. They broadcast them a good while in advance. Um, the reality is that it's still illegal. Okay. Now, there's a lot of writing floating around that the people running these stores somehow didn't know this or were confused or something. It's a bunch of nonsense, right? It's the line that the Conservative Party is pushing to try to make it seem like it's the government's fault, right? It's just a scandal, right? There's all these pot dispensaries showing up because the government created a confused atmosphere, right? Like people don't know, right? It's only been illegal for their whole lives. you know, it's not complicated, right? But I mean, they want to blame the government rather than point the fingers at these people. Obviously, the store owners knew what they were doing. They made a calculation that the risk of cornering a market was worth the reward of doing it, right? And then they got burned. That's what happens when you gamble, right? It was a calculated decision, and they lost. But it doesn't really justify it, right? What's the best option right now? The government has announced that it is going to table legislation for full legalization, and they are expecting it to get to that point within a year. So what are they doing arresting people? I mean, it is illegal. They broadcast it. They knew what they were doing, but it's still stupid, okay? It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of police resources, legal resources. And this is an angle that few people are thinking about, but are going to have to start thinking about soon once the cases start coming in. But everybody that was arrested today will have an incredibly strong civil argument for compensation, okay? Let's say you've been in jail for, or you've been in and out of jail for, or even, let's say you only served 6 months in jail for, for smoking a joint, right? But you went to jail. You actually served time for smoking a joint. You now have a criminal record. You can't find a job. Your life is fucked, right? These people are going to start coming out of the shadows once it's legalized. They're going to start suing the government for compensation for the damages that the prohibition policy has created in their lives. And they're going to win large settlements, hundreds of thousands of dollars, for the damage that this policy has created. And they deserve it. And the courts will say they deserve it. And the money will flow. Now, I know a lot of people are going to laugh, right? Well, wait for it, right? So not only is it the case that they're wasting public money, public policing resources, and public legal resources in the present, but every person that you arrest for marijuana from this point forward is going to have a civil case for compensation for all the damage that it does in their life. So it's also the case that the state is going to have to produce huge payouts for wasting the time, money, and resources of private citizens and commercial interests. I am very much in favor of full legal legalization, but we have to collectively understand that it's not that easy, okay? That it's going to come with a tremendous cost of reparations going to the victims of prohibition over several decades. And our court system in Canada will interpret the situation that way. We have a very liberal court system, a very activist court system, and I can guarantee you that at every level the court will interpret it that way. That we will have huge reparations. It will go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will uphold them. And so for the first 10 years or so, all that tax revenue is going to go towards legal costs fighting for reparations. So this situation is hard to describe without using the word stupid. Okay? Every person that you arrest is going to cost taxpayers thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's stupid. There's no other way to talk about it. Okay? But the cops have a job to do too. They can't just not do their job, right? The feds should decriminalize it immediately. Okay? Let it fly into chaos for a little while. It's not, maybe not ideal, but it's better than the alternative. And then once you've got the laws in place, maybe you should hurry up, Maybe there's not a reason for it to take a fucking year to do it. It's not that complicated, really. And once you have the legal system in place, then you can go after the black market. I'm not really very conservative with money, but if I was, if I was a right-winger, if I was a conservative, and the mayor of Toronto is not, he's not the populist right-wing idiot that Rob Ford was. He's an old progressive conservative, meaning that he's somewhere to the left of the Democrats in the United States, but that's considered right-wing in Canada. He's not like, he's like a business conservative, right? But he is a conservative. And a lot of liberals voted for him the last time around just to get rid of the Fords, right? Because the Fords were just, there wasn't really, in some ways he ran as the liberal, right? There were three candidates. There were the Fords, there was John Tory, and then there was the wife of the former NDP leader. Her name was Olivia Chow. And she was considered the left-wing candidate, right, from the NDP. And then you had the Fords on the right, and then John Tory, who was a conservative, but he ran in the center, which is where the Liberals normally are. So he picked up a lot of Liberal support, but he's definitely to the right of most Liberals, right? Which is why this is a very interesting situation to watch unfold, right? Toronto's a very left, or it's a very liberal place anyways. It's very hard to win in Toronto as a conservative, which is why Ford's win was so surprising to so many people. He managed to mobilize a section of the populace that is normally too busy eating chicken wings to go vote, right? But it's unstable, right? However you want to view John Tory, he's unstable, right? But if I was a conservative, okay, I wouldn't be really that upset about, the idea that there's people smoking, as though people weren't smoking pot anyways, right? I would be far more upset about the financial implications that these raids are going to create than about the social conservative aspect of, stopping people from, smoking a joint. It's not really such a big deal. And most Torontonians are not going to see it as a big deal. right? So what we have here is a classic example of a small number of wealthy people, using their financial influence. But they didn't think it through. In the long run, this is going to hurt those interests more than it helps them, which is the constant refrain with the drug war, right? You think you're doing something that's positive, and then it backfires. It's just over and over again. Hopefully, this is the last, sort of, reflex of irrationality. And once we get over this, it's finished. But if I am going to criticize the feds here, it's that they're taking too long. And instead of leaving the cops in a situation where they have to do things that maybe they don't even really even want to do, they should clarify it, decriminalize it, let it run rampant, and then rein it afterwards. It's going to cost them a lot less in the long run. Okay, so I'm making some eggs at 2:30 in the morning, but I've got a bit of a problem in that I don't have any salsa, which I fixed the other day by making I made fried eggs instead of scrambled ones the other day. So, but today's an even bigger problem in that I don't have any cheese. But I do have something that I've been meaning to get rid of for a long time, which is pickle juice. So this is what we're gonna do here. We're gonna make poached eggs, which is actually, truth be told, my favorite type of egg, but not something I have a lot of. So that's going. All right, I'm just gonna wait for that to come. I'm gonna want to wait for that to boil just a little. But then again, I don't really. It doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dump my pickle juice in here, and that is quite a bit of it, right? So let's wait for that to warm up. I guess that's a little piece of garlic. It's been in there for quite a while. So enjoy that. In fact, I've got well, there's no use in wasting the pickle juice, right? That's maybe it needs a little bit more water, actually, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna let that come to a boil, and I'll do the poachy bit, and we'll see how it goes. Yes, I'm gonna wait for the toast to come down. Sorry. That's the last of the salami. It's kind of broken up a little like bacon. That's the idea there. I'll wait until I get the eggs in, and still hasn't come up here. Seems to be taking a while. I don't know if it's because of the temperature down here. The stove seems to be on like half. I think that the electricity down here is wired screwy. It's like I'm on the same breaker as the guy upstairs. So if his air conditioner is going crazy, it means I'm getting a lot of juice down here. Anyways, a few bubbles. It shouldn't be too much longer. This is like pretty drastic end of the month stuff, right? I overbought soy milk, which is fine. I'll probably do it again this month. So I've got there's a little bit left in there, probably enough for tomorrow. So, but I've got no mustard, no salsa, a little bit of mayo. I've got enough for one more smoothie. Like that's my last banana. I've got one bagel, and that's it, right? A little bit more pickle juice back there. Like fridge is dead. Like I say, this is well, it's now Monday morning. I should have cash in my account in less than 24 hours. If there's not some there already, I don't know. but like the freezer's dead too, right? I got some strawberries, some bread, and that's my soup stock, which actually I'm gonna deal with too. So it's actually gonna be my first priority this month is to get rid of the soup stock, get rid of that spaghetti. So how long? I don't know. I'm gonna take my first 2 weeks. My first 2 weeks are gonna be budgeted for spaghetti and soup. That's the goal. And smoothies, of course. I have my daily smoothie. Which may actually just give me a little more money for the month. I'm not actually convinced that means I'm going to use it for those dance parties. The more time has gone on, the more I think about it. I think the one this Saturday is maybe not so unlikely, but the one in the middle of the month I think is pretty unlikely. It's like no chance almost. So I'll have to make the decision on Saturday probably. It'll be the day. It'll be on Saturday that I make the decision. But that means that at the very least my grocery bill should be down for a little bit for the first half of the month. I'll have to figure out what that means when I get to the second half of the month. But July doesn't look. I've been waiting for the show schedule to come down for a while. I mean, even this month, 5 shows. That's a lot of shows in 1 month for me. But I mean, they all look like they're going to be interesting shows. So I mean, I'm not going to skip them, right? The average month is like 2, maybe 3, right? So I think July, it looks like it's coming down a little bit, but I mean, there's some big ones, like there's Swans in July, right? So I don't know. This still hasn't come up yet, huh? It's getting a little bit of steaming. Okay. But yeah, so it's gonna be like it's a slightly different grocery bill, right? It's gonna be like green peppers and I say slightly, it's not that different, right? So, but no eggs, more cheese, that kind of thing, right? So we'll see how that works out as I go. But so yeah, how am I gonna do this? I guess probably it's gonna make more sense to move this over here and pop this down here. So I think it's just about ready to go. Except it's not. I really need it to be boiling. So I gotta wait this out. It's not really boiling, but it is steaming. I suspect it might have something to do with the solution. You can see a little bit of... I can't remember that far back. It's been years since I took chemistry. Should the acid, if it's acidic, make it harder to boil? I don't know. But I think it's plenty hot anyways. Let's give this a shot. I am just breaking the egg. And putting it in. And on there. Ah. This is, normally when you make poached eggs it's like vinegar, but this is with pickle juice, dill pickle juice, so there's a bit of garlic in there too. And, I suspect it'll be quite delicious actually. Okay. I just need to wash my hands before I do anything else. Always wash your hands when you're doing eggs. You will get salmonella eventually if you don't. Truth is, you probably will eventually anyways. But less risk factor. Anyways, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna put my toast in, put my eggs back in the freezer, and from there. So I left it in there long enough for the toast to come up. I guess that's gonna be a personal choice kind of thing. Depends on how you like it. I found myself one of these guys. Good idea. Can we see in here? Yeah. Okay, good. And just gonna carefully take it out there. And I'm actually gonna just pop it right in there. And what am I going to do with the water here? Of course, it's not really water; it's more pickle juice. But I'm going to actually let it just sit there for a bit because I'm going to take all the stuff that's in here out. And it's going to take a few minutes, as you can see. But the hole in the strainer is a little too big. Not quite working. But I don't know, I may reuse it. We'll find out. I mean, why throw it away? If I can get, well, seems like there's a lot of egg in there actually. Anyways, so as you can see, that might not be so useful after all. We'll find out. In the end, I decided for the straining option, and I got a little out. I was more concerned about making sure I didn't waste any of it. There really wasn't that much in there. I think it looked like a bit more than there was. I may make a different choice next time, but poached eggs and salami, bacon and eggs basically, and give that a try. 6 o'clock and I'm still just doing end of the month day-to-day things. No payment coming in, so I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow. And I don't know. I think I should probably go down to the Shoppers and see what the price they're gonna charge me is. I'm just thinking about the broccoli as I do my grocery list. That's what I wanted there. Kind of badly freezer burnt. I was thinking about making some soup, and then I thought about it, and reality is that the longer you cook something like broccoli for, the more it loses its value. So it's kind of pointless to take the broccoli and cook it. All you're really doing is reducing it to a carb, too much of a. You're just reducing it to sugar, right? I'll figure out something to do with that in a minute. So it's gonna make more sense to take that and chop it up. Use it maybe in eggs or something like that. I'm thinking maybe I might even put that in the spaghetti. The spaghetti I have to make. I gotta get rid of that. So, in fact, I might even. No, I'm gonna need coffee before the end of the month for sure. Okay. Yeah, I got away last month without buying any coffee. That's rare. But I mean, I didn't have any coffee for the first like 15 days or something. So, anyways, yeah, makes more sense to make put the broccoli in probably the spaghetti, or maybe even the eggs. So no broccoli soup. That see if I was gonna make broccoli soup, I'd have to buy like potatoes and carrots and stuff, and probably not gonna save any money anyways. So that's fine. Yeah. So I've decided that what I'm gonna be doing today is cleaning and things of the sort. It just makes more sense for me to do all that stuff first, and then focus on the Aleph stuff. I guess when I come back on the 3rd. So it just means May's a few days longer. May's a few days longer this year. Not the end of the world. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm going to have to go down to the other Shoppers Drug Mart. The one on Tecumseh. Well, that doesn't mean anything to you. It was the 3rd one when I went for the walk a while back. It's about a half-hour walk. I'm going to try and get I'm going to see what it costs. So let's have a reminder here. Let's go for a walk first, and I'll explain it on the way there. It's only 7, meaning it's a little cooler out. In fact, it's not going to be a super hot day today, so some people may claim relief. I'd prefer the hot weather myself, but anyways, it's something like 20 degrees. So yeah, let's do a recap here. Last month, I went to pick up my estrogen and realized that the price had gone up dramatically. I went around to a couple of different stores and had a variety of different prices. All of them cheaper, at least. But when I tried to get an explanation from the store, I mean, the price went up $15, which is a lot, right? $15 on a $65 purchase. I mean, it's a lot more than inflation. That's a big price increase. And he couldn't really give me an answer. He just told me that the price went up. And then when I asked him, well, why is it so much cheaper in these other stores then? And he said because the price hasn't changed to reflect the price increase yet. So I said, okay. If that's the case, let's wait until the last day of the month. And then we'll go down and we'll see what the price is then. Now, compounding the concern is the fact that one of the stores that told me, or two of the stores that told me that the price was lower were Shoppers. And it's supposed to be a constant price across. So, there's something wrong there anyways. Either what he's saying is right, and I'm going to walk in today and find the price increases, in which case there's not much use in changing. Or the price is going to be less, and I'm going to switch. To complicate the issue, the difference between the Shoppers price and the price at the PC down the road is $3, but the Shoppers is open all night, and I'm willing to pay $3 a month for 24-hour access. But I also want to verify that, right? Because I'm not sure if it's that. I'm not sure if the pharmacy is open all night, right? So it could be the store's open all night, but the pharmacy is not open until 8. Then, there's no benefit, right? So I'll figure that out when I get there. But that's the goal for the morning, is to work that out, and no doubt end up shifting to one of the two places, unless I do find out that the argument is valid. Big mean-looking cat.
unless I find out the argument is valid and the price has shot up. In which case, I'll be glad I didn't shift, because it wouldn't have made any difference anyways. It's a longer walk. If I'm stuck with a higher price increase, I think that my concern is less about what the price is and more the apparent truth that there doesn't seem to be really any logic in these persistent price increases that are coming. This is not the first time I've seen a price increase, and they seem to be increasing in frequency, right? So if I can move to one of these other stores, at least like if it's stable, that's, you know, I don't really understand what the factors are that go into determining what the price of this thing is, how volatile it is, or anything else, right? So, I guess it's even the exchange rate. I don't know, but I know that I want to minimize the. I want to keep it to around what the Trillium rebate is on a monthly basis. If I can do that, then I don't feel like I'm really paying it, right? Like the difference between what was it, $65 and $86, or what? Sorry, it was yeah, 65 and 82. Like, it's not really going to change my life, but I don't want to pay it just out of principle, and I want stability, right? So I'm just skeptical about it. This is it's the only store that wants it. Like, there was other stores that were a little bit more than 65, but nobody was anywhere near 82. So, like, and the price jumped out of nowhere. You know, like, I'm just a bit skeptical about it. I think there were other factors. So, if the implication is, you know, we don't want your kind around here, then that's the way to get me out of there. Anyways, I guess I've been never really timed myself on this walk, huh? 7 minutes, and I'm already at almost at Giles. Okay. So I said about 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so bad news. The price here, it has been updated to the same as the price at the other store. So it is open 24 hours. I could come here and pick it up at any time of the day, but it doesn't really help me much if it's the same price. So I am going to walk down to the PC, see what the price is there, because I do go to the PC anyways, right? So if it's a little cheaper there, then I come out ahead, and I'll do that. If not, I guess I'm gonna be stuck staying where I am. It's the fastest, easiest thing. But the $15 is worth it to me, even if it's yeah, I don't know. We'll see when we get there. I'll make a decision. It's just like, let's say, see, it was a little cheaper anyways, but let's say they increased the price to like 75. Well, is it worth it for me to walk all the way there for $5? It's not. But it is for 15, right? So, The other thing is that I don't know how long, right? So it's like, it could be just like a month off. We'll find out when I get there. See, the other thing is that I get PC points there, right? I mean, I technically get optimum points at the shoppers, but I never use them. If I start shopping more frequently at the store there, and I mean, if I end up having, well, I go there every month anyways to get something or other. But if I do end up doing that, then I'll do more shopping there. And you know, even if it works out to, you know, like 50, 60 bucks a year, if you balance it out, that might get me closer to the Trillium monthly, right? So, see, it's the whole situation is irritating to me, right? Just in a broad sense. I for sure come here. I get cheese here every month, right? So this is like I'm here all the time. It's only 10 minutes down the road, and I mean, like I do inevitably end up going down there for something, right? Ice cream or, you know. But I mean, like if I'm, like I say, if I'm going down there to get the pills every month, then it would make sense to pick up stuff like eggs or whatever else is roughly cheapest there, right? So I also got to figure out timing, right? I don't even know if they're open yet. It's about 20 to 8. So, but it's the whole situation broadly. It's kind of irritating. You know, like, it's not inflation. $15 on 65. That's not, like, that's, I don't know what that is, but we'll find out just how broad it is, right? It could be that the shoppers is taking a price grab, taking a price grab, and it's across all the stores, right? So it's not just that store; it's all the stores are doing it. That's still not clear. It will be clear in a few minutes. Ugh. And this PC point argument doesn't really work out. If I was to spend my entire grocery budget here every month plus the prescription money, it would work out to about $20 a year. Barely, not even kind of thing, right? So, and that's the minimum that you're allowed to cash in. So, that's no argument. I don't even really know if I'm going to sit around and wait or not. I'm going to take a little walk outside and see. Yeah, I think I'm going to wait. 2 reasons. The first is so I can know whether or not the price increase is across the board or just at the shoppers. Remember the Roxals was disappointing as well, right? And so was the Food Basics. They were both in the $77, $78 range. So, see, the thing is, I have every reason to believe that that there's going to be a price increase, and if there's not, then this is where I want to go. And if there is, then at least I know that the price increase is actually in the price of the good. The other reason is that I can see myself coming up in the last week of June and being $20 short on the show that I want to see on the 23rd. I may end up cutting out the Screaming Females altogether anyways. Just for the reason that I've already seen them. on this tour. Um, they play short sets. That's the other thing. Um, and it's just a distance issue to the Loving Touch, right? I got to take a bus, and last time I got stuck overnight, and I think there's a decent chance it'll happen again. So, is that worth it? I don't know. If I find out that the price increases everywhere, it may turn out that it's not, and it more or less rules out the dancing night on the 4th. So, hey, I know I have limited resources. I know I have many choices. That's no surprise to me. I think I've actually got it pretty good. To make a choice between going out 4 or 6 times a month, it's kind of a first world problem, right? But this particular month, that $20 might make a difference. So I think I should hang around for a half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is to find out. And like I say, I want to know as well. It's about 20 to 9 and I'm really just cold. It's freezing in there. I'm thinking now that I'm here, I should probably check the pharmacy in the health center there. Check that on the way out, depending on the result in here. It's just cold in there. I have to come out and get some air, warm up, sun. It's even a little chilly out here still, but it's still better than. I mean, I guess it's a grocery store, so they gotta keep it a little cool. But I have made no secret of my disdain for air conditioning. Anyways, I've been thinking about it while I was in there, and I can think of 2 ways how I can save a little bit of cash to make sure things will work out. I'm pretty sure I over budgeted for beer, and I'm pretty sure I did that on purpose. So if I can cut down about $5 a show, it's 5 shows there. It's $25, and I'm not going to save more than 15 here, 15 at the most, kind of thing. So that makes up the difference, right? So, for example, for the show tomorrow, I had budgeted for bringing three rock stars instead I'll bring 2. So save $350 there, right? The show after that, I think I had budgeted $15 on beer. So instead I'll spend $10 on beer. And the beers there is cheap, so it's not like it's, on top of that, my food budget was designed to fill me up for the month, and there's a few things that aren't like, for example, I don't think because I'm not going to be if I spend the first 2 weeks of the month eating pasta, then I won't switch over to eggs until like the 15th. Meaning I can probably get by on 1 container of salsa rather than 2, right? Which means I need to buy 2 next month, but I get my GST in next month, so that'll balance that out. See, these are the kinds of things. I'm fully, full disclosure, I'm completely aware that these are first world problems. How can I get to the most number of shows I can get to while living on disability? It's like, the flip side of that, though, is that if I go over 5 times this month, then I'm losing, that's 9 times 5 is $45 on bus ticket, on customs, right? So, I'm budgeting about $200 for concerts for the month. Like, a quarter of that is paying customs, right? So that's a pain in the ass, but it's part of the process, right? And I can't get around that. shows here in Windsor are never going to be more than $20, right? Unless I decide I want to get smashed. It's $5 to get in. $15 on beer is more than enough. Like, but if I'm going to a show over in Detroit, like, I'm spending $10 up front just to get over and back, right? So, it's a premium for being in the middle of things, I guess. But I mean, about the only place I can think of where that is comparable in Canada where I wouldn't have to worry about that is Toronto, right? Or at least in Ontario. Sorry, I can't move outside Ontario. The social systems are provincially run, so if I was to move outside of Ontario, I'd have to be there for like a year before I could qualify for any of these social assistance, and that's not feasible. The only possible really serious places I think about anyways are Vancouver and Montreal, right? And I don't think I'd really seriously think about Montreal. I think like the only place I'd ever, like besides Toronto, it would be Vancouver. Not that I really have any serious contemplation about moving. In fact, I was talking a little while ago about experiments that the province is doing with a guaranteed minimum income. The numbers they're throwing around for a guaranteed minimum income would actually double my quote-unquote income. So they're talking about more like $20,000, $25,000 a year. I'm currently under 15,000. So if you were to boost me from $1,100 a month, I guess it's $1,150. It's $11.10. You know what? I budgeted that wrong, so I got an extra $10 there. Yeah. No, I didn't. No, that was just for the. Okay, that was just the shorthand. Okay. But yeah, so it's $11.70. So it's under $1,200. If you were to boost that to 2,000, that would make the difference between being able to do just about everything I want, but having to be a little bit conservative about it, and just being able to do whatever I want and not having to even think about it, right? So, I pointed this out once before. Like, what would I do with the extra money? I'd buy pizza. Actually, you know what I would do? If I had an extra $1,000 a month, I would spend a good deal of it on facial removal. Because once I got the hair off my face, then I'll feel comfortable with going through the rest of my transition, like the surgery part of it. The reason I'm not going through surgery is just because I think it's crazy to go through surgery while I'm still shaving. That makes no sense to me. Like, one thing at a time, and that's a logical transition that I can't bridge. And like I am making a decision, right? I could decide to stay in and just not do anything and spend all my money on that, but I don't. I mean, I had this epiphany some time ago, right? To live is to live, not to. If you spend all your time planning to live, then you don't end up living, right? So, I mean, if I could do both things, right? I mean, if I could live and you go through it, then I do it. But like, I'm gonna hermit for the next 2 years to, like, and then what? My life is not going to be substantially different, right? But I mean, if I could do it, I'd do it, right? It's so. It's just a question of whether that extra income exists or not. But yeah, I mean, I think I've got. I can work this out one way or the other. If I can save $15 on this, then I mean, for this month, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe next month it might not make sense to walk all the way down here for $15, but this month it does. and I'm pretty sure I can cobble together about 40, $50 by the combination of just drinking less and being a little bit more careful with the groceries. So I think it'll work out either way. But it was about 8:45, 9 minutes ago, so I'm gonna go in and check. I'm about to get some more air. Good news, not really. Ambiguous news. He gave me the price that he gave me last month, which is good. $63, which is less than I was paying before, by a couple of dollars. But he said I'll have to put an order through. So, if it is the case that the manufacturer has increased the price, then that'll come in the updated reflected cost, right? So he doesn't have enough of it to give it to me at the $63 price range, and he very well may end up boosting the price when he gets a quote through. He said he needs a few minutes to figure that out. That's fine. I am fully expecting him to come back with the same price, and with the same price that the other stores have, or minus $1 or $2. In which case, there's no use in transferring. It's the same price, or same price minus $1 or $2. If he comes back with it at 75, 76 or something, it would make more sense to transfer to the Rexall or the Food Basics, right? So, did I bring my? I actually left the pill bottle in there. That's fine. It's not the biggest issue. So yeah, I'm sitting outside waiting for a bit, and I'll deal with that. But I am expecting him to come back with a bad price, unfortunately. At the least, what that will do is it will confirm the situation, right? If he comes back and he says, okay, the manufacturer boosts the price, then right? It's clear as day what's happening, right? And I can know that it's the company that's trying to rip people off, the bastards. Like I say, it's a 25% increase in price. I can't, I can't make sense of that, right? So, yeah. It's, like I say, I'm pretty sure it can work. Money to me is as useful as what I can get for it, right? I'm not the type of person that sees the value in holding on to cash. I mean, you give me money, I spend it as soon as I get it, and I think that that's the right thing to do with it. It's the right approach, right? I don't believe in saving. So, if I have to spend more on this, and I have to spend less on something else, it's just a question of balancing things, right? So, I'll figure it out. But the other thing is, as far as I can tell, this particular company has a monopoly on this in this area. So, there's not another company I can buy from. It's a pain in the ass, right? If I could if one company wants to boost the price by 25%, well, then you look at the other company, right? I'm no fan of markets, but in the absence of regulations that put in place, cost regulations, medicine should be sold at cost. There should be no profit on medicine ever, right? But it's not the world we live in. It's more efficient to have monopolies if you have regulations in place that prevent price gouging, right? But those regulations are being weakened, unfortunately. This is the kind of thing that the TPP is going to kill too. So, we'll see what's going on here with this. But in Canada, especially, the regulations on medicine will be declared anti-competitive, right? bullshit, but we're gonna have to fight, you know? That's the world. But anyways, I got a few more minutes to wait. I'm gonna take a walk around, see if I can find something bad, then go back in. Okay, so as expected, the price here went up. It's a little cheaper. It's well, she said it would be 73. I'm not actually convinced that's accurate. Difference is $3 to a difference of $7. Well, yeah, it might be about right. I think she might have undersold it by $1 or $2 to sneak me in. But anyways, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. If they were gonna sell it to me for 63, well, you know, I'd say $15. They're gonna sell it to me for 73. And I'm only saving, you know, $6-7 a month. It's not really worth the walk. The fact that they don't up until 9. It's not worth any of these things. So, I am gonna check here. Actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother. They're closed on the weekends. It's not worth my time either. Okay, so, that sucks. 80 some dollars. That's not shit. Oh, there's it as an incentive. It doesn't work. You know, like it's not like I have some kind of choice here. You know, I go after them and then I'm just useless, right? At least I'm halfway useful this way. Well, no, I mean, like, what do you do with the most effeminate male in the world? Like, what do you do? Like, there's no function, there's no rule, right? That's the whole point. So, yeah. I think probably the better option is to find a way to reduce my grocery bill a little. I think I can probably do that. No, but I mean, really, like, there's no. I tried to have this discussion with people before, and people have a hard time understanding it. But it's like trying to. So you have to understand that, like, I don't have the slightest idea of what being a dude is, or, you know, like, or the slightest interest in learning how to be a dude. You know, like, it's just like there's no. It's like trying to teach a deer to be a lion. You know, and you put like this meat in front of the deer, and the deer is just like, I don't know what to do with this. My teeth can't handle this. I don't understand this, right? You know, and it's just. It may be confusing to people because humans are very visually oriented, right? So they function based on. So much of the way that humans function is based on what they see, right? So if they see something that looks kind of like a dude, then they have a hard time grappling with it, you know? But, like, if you've been watching my vlogs for a while, I think it should be kind of obvious that, like, I just don't. Like, there's no dude content remotely, you know? Like if, you know, and I'm pretty honest. No, it's not like I'm hiding anything. You know, it's just not who I am, right? So it's. If I went off them, would that $80 be kind of useful to me? Well, sure. But it's just gonna put me back in the situation where I don't understand how to exist. You know? I've tried to explain this before in terms of, like, my battery's out, or at least it's gonna go out. Maybe I'll just I'll rant it out. You could maybe brainwash me, but like it's gonna require a lot of resources, right? If you were to like strap me to a chair and make me watch porn, Clockwork Orange style, it might work. No, it might, but like you really have to, fundamentally destroy who I am as an individual and insert something else. Like we're talking like Nazi psychological tricks, like that's like if you want an answer to, conform to your, binary concept of things, that's what it is. You know, you gotta go to the Mengele kind of thing, like Nazi science. And the truth is, it might work. Like I don't suggest it's impossible, but like absent that, it's not. There's no way forward. Like nothing short of that kind of tactic is going to have any effect. And all you're going to get is this like useless, effeminate, skinny, weak dude that can't do anything and can't exist, you know, and has no interest in changing that. Right? That's why so many trans people end up killing themselves, because they just don't know how. You know, and it is. I mean, I think it is fundamentally an educational issue, or a conditioning thing, right? It's about teaching, right? I know that the talking heads and psychologists want to step away from this idea, about being about upbringing and strong male role models and stuff. I It might not be entirely about that, but it's certainly a factor. And I would argue that certainly in the presence, I mean, it certainly has to be something that's missing, right? It's not going to be the dominant thing, not the only thing. Well, it may actually be the dominant thing, but it's not the only thing, right? Like there's other, it's a complicated thing, right? We don't talk about single factors regarding anything nowadays. Everything is a confluence of things. But I think that just about anybody, if you take them and you force them at a young age to conform to something, they will do it. And if you don't, then they won't. So I'm home, and I just want to complete that thought because I can't leave it like that. So what is a gender? It's a social rule, a social construct, and ultimately something that's taught. Okay? So people aren't born into genders. People are taught genders as they grow up. That's partly why I'm so opposed to the idea that transsexuality is a genetic condition. That really doesn't make any sense. If you understand that gender is a social construct and not a biological reality. So I really push back strongly against that. The reality is that there's actually no science at all whatsoever that suggests that there's any genetic basis for transsexuality at all. There's nothing. Even the idea of a gay gene, which has actually, in truth, been debunked over and over again, the closest thing they found to it was something that may code for hormones, which really, if anything, it might suggest something towards transsexuality, but I mean, there's no empirical evidence to back that idea up, right? People that are born as genetic males but identify as females don't have higher estrogen levels or lower testosterone levels. That's just simply not true. And people that are born as genetic females but identify as males, they don't have higher levels of testosterone or lower levels of estrogen. There's no correlation there. It's just false. So the idea that there might be some genetic basis to it based on it's just I mean, before you can start measuring whether people have that gene or not, you need to determine whether your supposed mechanism actually makes sense. Meaning, even if they were to find some correlation with the genetic markers, which they have not done to any, convincing way, they haven't demonstrated it on an empirical level. What they're claiming has a cause and effect relationship doesn't, right? So there's just we cannot yet rule, we can't disprove the idea that there's a genetic basis to homosexuality or transsexuality, but there's really absolutely no evidence for it, and the kind of more in-depth, smarter philosophical analysis, and whether we like it or not, we are actually still at a philosophy stage in understanding these sorts of things. We're really not anywhere close to talking about science when it comes to these things yet. Really kind of, I think, I don't think we need to debunk it on a science level. I think that we can just think about it and we can conclude that it doesn't make any sense by thinking about it. Um, I mean, we're at a can't prove a negative stage at the science point, but I think if we think about it, we can come to the conclusion that it doesn't make sense to look for genetic markers, and we should not be surprised when they don't find any. Perhaps to be rigorous, one should do so anyways, but nobody should be surprised when, after exhaustive researches and decades of work, they shrug, they put their hands up, and they say we can't find anything. Um, I think that it's pretty clear that we're actually really almost at that point already, um, and it's not going to be too much longer before I think people give up and say this isn't here. Um, it wasn't a waste of time because we've more or less ruled it out, right? Um, but it's not fruitful. Um, Rather, the arguments that suggest that gender is learned, it's taught, um, largely at a a parental level, but also on a social level. I think that that's a much better way to try to understand gender, right? That would imply that if we lived in a world where women are taught to be fierce warriors and men are taught to be effete caregivers, then that's the world we would have. Um, and I think that anybody that wants to push back against that, using genetic language or whatever, I think that they're really displaying biases. Um, I see no reason to think that couldn't happen. It's just the way that we're taught is the other way around, right? No matter how things are changing or what the future may hold or anything else, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that if you were to take me off hormones, I'm not like going to become a man all of a sudden, right? Um, I'm just going to become a trans person that's not on hormones anymore. Um, and frankly, I'm gonna go through all the same problems I went through before, and it's really just gonna be a matter of time before I get back on them again. Rather, if you had some incentive driving you that wanted to convert me into a male, I would have to transition into being a male. Okay, and that would require something along the lines of going to man school, because I would need to be taught what it is to be a male, which is something I never was taught. And again, I know that the psychologists, they see. I think that this is kind of a complicated social thing, right? Um, because there's a concept of shame attached to non-binary gender associations, right? And so this kind of mythology developed up around it in order to try to protect the reputation of people that had children. Um, that didn't identify as binary gender roles. So kind of in a kind of do no harm, or uh, you know uh, path of least harm kind of mentality. Um, the way that physicians and psychologists have approached the situation is, let's convince the parents that it's not their fault, kind of thing, right? So that they don't have anger. There's not resentment. And in a kind of if you kind of take a step back and look at it in a kind of a meta sense, maybe there's some valid motives there, right? Um, because trying to cut through the social biases is very difficult. It might be the preferable approach, to say, okay, yes, your child did not develop into the conventional gender role because you didn't teach them it. Because the only way they would have actually developed into the conventional gender role in the first place is if you had taught them it, right? The only way I ever would have become a male is if I was taught to be one, because I'm not going to just pick it up on my own. It's not just inherent. It's not something that just comes to you. It has to be taught, right? That's the proper understanding of gender, is that it's not inherent. It's not genetic. It doesn't just come. It does have to be taught. And if you don't teach it, then it doesn't come. If you don't teach a boy to be a man, then a boy will not become a man. Now, that doesn't mean that, if you don't teach a boy to become a man, then a boy will become a woman, right? There's other factors there, right? It's uh, it's not even necessary. Well, see, here's the thing: you can teach a boy to become a man, and the boy might reject you and become a woman because instead, right? So it's complicated. There's a concept of free will attached there as well, right? Um, but instead of trying to, you know, blame the parents, kind of thing, um, because then you've got two problems, right? Then you've got the child that has the non-binary gender representation or perception, and then you have the parent that's, flipping out and, blaming themselves and is suicidal or whatever else because society won't accept it and they'll blame them and everything else, right? And so to kind of prevent the harm to the parents, they tell them it's not your fault and that there's nothing you could have done, uh, you know, and this myth develops out of it, right? Out of a kind of a what's the word I'm looking here for? I can't find the word I'm looking for, but just out of a kind of a diagnostic sense, right? And a sense of altruism. What's the best way to help everybody? Is that just don't think about this, right? But I mean, you have to think about this, right? If gender is taught, and it is, then you can't escape this, right? Um, and again, that doesn't mean that if you teach a child to be a gender, then they will be. They might reject it. And it doesn't mean that if you don't teach a child a gender, then they won't be. They might, pick it up somewhere else, right? So I mean, it's complicated, right? But certainly, if you don't teach a child to be a gender, then there's no reason to think that will come to them inherently. And if they don't learn it some other way, through a family friend or through an uncle or through a teacher or through something else, if it just never happens, then they just never learn it, right? So, and if I want to be completely honest, from my analysis, that's what it is with me. When I say that I don't understand what it is to be a male, it's because that's a gender role I was never taught, and so I never learned it. Um, do I blame my father for that? Not really, no. Um, I'm not convinced I would have been particularly open to it, anyways. Um, I don't want to say I saw myself as a girl as a young age because that would be a little bit misleading. But I certainly never really saw myself as a boy either, right? I didn't really understand gender when I was small. It took me a long time before kind of gender kind of made sense to me, right? It was more like I would argue more that I was raised genderless. And that was kind of out of a concept of equality, right? Uh, Gender rules were not really enforced, and so I didn't really grow into either, right? It's kind of more like I was taught that there weren't gender rules, um, that I could do these things that I wanted to, my sister could do these things if she wanted to, and our sexes, our biological sexes, didn't really have anything to do with that, right? And so it was more like I was given space to, develop things. Um, Ideas were suggested to me, but if I didn't jump at them, there was no real particular, you know, means of enforcement, right? Um, and certain talks, certain directions didn't really come. But the flip side of that is that I didn't really initiate them either, right? So they weren't I think he was expecting me to initiate things, and I never did, and so you know, it never happened, right? But the end result, without needing to blame anyone, I mean, raising somebody is there's no book, right? Or well, actually there's lots of books, but you know, there's no there's no clear way to understand it, right? So I mean, I I wouldn't have the first idea. It's hard to blame someone for something. It's complicated, right? He never went to school. Nobody ever taught him, right? So, um, but regardless, the situation is that I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't learn, and so it's not just a process of removing a female hormone, and then I'm a guy. Again, implying that I ever was to begin with. No, I'm still, you know, still somebody that identifies as female. It's just now I'm not on hormones. Um, and the process of becoming a dude is one that would be like I'd need to go to like dude school and graduate with some kind of a like it would require that kind of a process, right? Um, Not that I have any particular interest in it or I'm planning on it or anything, but I'm just saying in the abstract. Um, See, I pointed out before that it would require some kind of a Nazi brainwashing technique. Um, and that's true, but that's because there's an absence of cooperation involved. Um, if I was actually interested in cooperating, and I was going to sit down and really learn this and really have these kinds of, you know, um, it might not actually require that. But I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of debate. I don't think we could really. Um, it's less that there's a lack of cooperation and more there's the um, I don't know where cooperation would get what it would lead to, sort of thing, right? It's like I could cooperate, but all the cooperation is going to lead to is just like a series of confusing disagreements, right? And even if I was to pretend to go along with it, like it's not gonna. Yeah, no, I think it would. Hey, I'm a very honest person. I'm just being honest, and I do think that it would require, some serious because it would have to change my nature, right? Like I'm willing to go down some pretty disparate intellectual paths, right? That's who I am as an individual. I don't have any problems with that.
we can have thought experiments. We can think about this. We can, what if that? Like I'm okay with going down, you know, any path really of thought. But that's in the world of make believe, right? That's not real. Um, and if we're going to talk about things that are real, that means, you know, fundamentally altering my nature, and that is not something that can be arrived at with cooperation, or discussion or debate, right? You can't convince me to change my nature. That's not what a nature is, right? A nature is a person's personality, individuality, being is a complex consequence of experience, right? Um, I was a blank slate at one point, and I've been filled up with data, right? And to argue with me to reverse that is not. I mean, it's like chemically impossible, right? I can't change the structure of my brain by thinking about it. I would have to live different experiences, have lived a different life. Um, you might be able to do that though with like I say, with obscure Nazi science techniques, tactics. Um, I'm not sure that the knowledge exists, but I think that abstractly, if could you sit me down and change my brain chemistry by brainwashing me somehow? I don't think that's impossible, right? But I think that short of that, like nothing else is going to get to that point. You know, like there's no other shortcut, even with cooperation. Um, it would have to be like a process of like breaking me down, destroying who I am, and then rebuilding me, right? Even if the cooperation was there, I couldn't overcome. You know, you is what you is, and you ain't what you ain't, right? Anyways, that was a long ramble. I couldn't leave it like that. I had to expand a little bit on what I was trying to say, which is just that because gender is taught, the role models that you grew up around are not irrelevant in determining your gender identity as you grow. I think, and I know that for myself, I would be far more likely to pinpoint causes on my upbringing than on any sort of genetic basis. Um, yeah, that's the truth of it.
When it was taken up in the United States President Donald, an issue which I studied very carefully, was always to treat it as clownish. I mean, there was never an attempt to really understand what that movement was about, except to say, it's going after the 1%, right? So I think we really need to be, to me, those cultural apparatuses are very important in producing very specific narratives about the United States, about democracy, about its laws, about the war machine. The media doesn't take up the question of mass incarceration in the United States. It doesn't take up the question of the race wars. There's a whole range of issues. Poverty, it barely touches. These are not entertaining. They don't work.
I would argue that we in public broadcasting do take up those.
But you're in Canada, and I think Canadian media is very different. It's serious. It's serious. It addresses serious issues, and it has serious conversations. You have Bill O'Reilly in the United States. These are shouting matches. They're not serious conversations. Bill Moyers, who's one of the few people who conducts a serious conversation, he's marginalized in stations that it takes a lot to get them on the air.
Okay, I want